We live in a world ruled by tyranny, where knowledge is suppressed and ignorance is glorified. A world where propaganda and misinformation travel the airways at the speed of lies. But in the midst of the violence and chaos, a great awakening is taking place. And as the media empires continue to collapse, a new network is forming. A network of truth, a network of courage, a network of awareness. Peace and greetings. You are now tuned into the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, where we examine current events, politics, health, finance, and topics of cultural relevance in America and throughout the world, while bringing you insightful interviews with guests that will both educate and inspire you. And now, your host of the Network of Awareness podcast radio station, ORRA the Informationalist.
Please just tell me what's happening to me in plain English without the mumbo jumbo.
My aura is a network full of awareness and gifts like ORRA, the Informationalist.
How you doing? How you doing?
Yes. Peace and greetings, brothers and sisters, now tuned in to the Network of Awareness podcast radio show. And we got a great show lined up for you today. And in today's installment of The Most High Makes No Mistakes, we got a great guest by the name of Debby Kruszewski. And we're going to let you know a little bit about Debby and what she's been able to accomplish and a little bit about her bio. And in today's series, the name of today's show is From Corporatocracy to God's Purpose Policy, which Debby has taken a leap of faith a while back to go from being a corporate executive to being a woman to serve God's plan and to serve her purpose in God's plan and to do big things with her dream pollination program. So let me tell you a little bit about Debby before we have her come on. After being dream crushed by corporate America, as many of us have, she says, I listened to the voice within that said, leave this place and start writing. And she says, I am Debby Krusz, also known as Kruszewski. I am the published author of Soul Meets Body, Precious and Fragile Things, and Live to Tell, which is her fourth novel, Date with Kate, is in the process right now. She says, all my novels are about following your heart. In addition to my novels, I have an inspiring blog. She's also a certified dream manager, coach, and business consultant. She's also a survivor of crushed dreams and an expert in dream rescue. And if your dream is a long buried seed or a squashed bud, I'm here to help you replant it, nurture it, and bring it to full bloom. Love it. She also states that my program is ideal for employers who want to make an investment in their employees by making them the most successful versions of themselves. Your employee morale will rise, productivity will increase, and turnover will decrease as a result of this dream pollination. She says, my program is great fit for businesses of any size, and I'm building my business and brand, helping others listen to their heart and pursue their dreams. So, what a great guest to have on the Network of Awareness, brothers and sisters. So in just a moment, we're going to let this beat rock out, and then we're going to bring Debby on here and give her a nice warm welcome. like they're saying, Deborah. Deborah. All right, let's welcome to the show. And Debbie, if you can unmute yourself, great. Let's welcome to the show, Debby Kruszewski. And Debbie, how you doing today?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Hello. I'm doing well. How are you? I mean, it's cold, but not as cold as it is in Florida.
Yeah. You're out in New York, right?
I'm in New York, yes.
Yeah. Debbie is a fellow New Yorker like myself. She actually knows of people that go to the high school or went to the high school I went to, Fordham Prep. And, she's very familiar with the Bronx because your mom grew up in the Bronx, right? Yeah.
Correct, yes.
So it's always good to have a fellow New Yorker on the show. And Debbie, one thing that I respect about what you've been able to do is you just left the corporatocracy and you started doing things based on what you felt compelled in your spirit and your heart to do, right?
Yes.
And I really appreciate that because that's what I finally chose to do back in January of 2020. And I haven't looked back ever since. It says here that after climbing the corporate ladder and, you know that your values and beliefs were not in line with what you were doing as a C-level corporate executive and you listened to that voice within. Can you tell the listeners what your upbringing was like briefly? Because I always like to start from the beginning with all my guests because we all have a beginning and we all have a childhood. And if you could just briefly give a description to what your childhood was like and where you grew up, which I believe you said you grew up in Westchester County, right?
Yes.
All right. So if you could talk a little bit about that and then we'll continue on this interview.
Sure. I grew up in Westchester County. I was an only child, very loving parents, family. I'm Roman Catholic. So I was brought up to go to church every Sunday and, I went to CCD, made all my sacraments. I don't really have many complaints of growing up. We had some family issues just like everybody else's family. So I stayed home. I went to college close to home instead of going away. And I, believe there's no mistakes. I mean, I met people that I'm so blessed to know and long lasting friendships. And, now I went to Iona College and now it's Iona University and it's so exciting to be connected with them. And I do mentoring to some of the students and I speak there. So, it's wonderful to be a part of that. And then, I started out in corporate America. I don't think really my upbringing was so sounds kind of boring, but no.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that would like to have that boredom in their life as far as their upbringings. I know I would.
Yeah. I mean, bumps and scrapes like everybody else, but nothing really worth crying about. I'm very blessed with my upbringing for sure.
So what were some of the trials and tribulations that you went through in corporate America when you got into the corporate field? And what were your plans when you actually got into corporate America? What were some of the things you were looking to accomplish or what were some of your goals back then?
My dreams had to change and that's fine. I was, going to school originally to be a dancer and to start a dance company. That was my goal and my dream. And, when I stayed home, at the time when I went to college, it was, you're either going to be an accountant, a school teacher, or a police officer. And I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do any of that. So yeah. I sort of followed the mold of, okay, well, this is what you do. You go to business. I decided on business school. So I went to business school and it was like, you're going to get a job. And it was like, okay, I guess this is what it is. So I listened to just kind of was a Pavlov dog of like, this is the formula, you follow it and that's it. So for me going into corporate America, it wasn't, and I didn't have these huge expectations. I, was told you go to college, you get a job, you make nice money and you save your money and you buy a house, you get married and you have kids. And I was just like, all right, well, I guess this is where it starts, is showing up somewhere, showing up to a job every day. And I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I mean, I will say at the beginning when my first job was exciting because was 10 of us that started together, and we're all still friends. And it was cool because it was like, oh my gosh, all these new people, and everybody was hungry and excited. And, we had no idea what we were doing. But then you get into the job and then it becomes real. And then, you make a mistake and, you get screamed at and you're like, oh my gosh. Sorority hazing was a little bit of preparation, but not as much. And then I'm like, I also worked in a job that was 24/7. So I worked 4 to midnight, and I was in my younger 20s. So it was a little difficult socially to kind of, when you're going to work when all your friends are like, we're getting out of work, or we're going to happy hour. And you're like, I'm on my way to work now. That was a little hard. I just didn't like the job. I'm like, okay, so I take this piece of paper and I write something on it and I give it to you. And like, that's the job. It was just, to me, I'm like, there's nothing, I'm not using my talents. I'm not using my skills. And then you're told, oh, well, you should become a manager. Well, oh, okay, great. I'll do that. And that'll be exciting. And then you get there and you're like, oh, this is not fun.
No, it's not. No. Management is not fun. No, not unless you like babysitting grown adults, but yeah.
And, you weren't really, you were in a culture where it's like, you manage what the culture is. And I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't how I operate. I don't like this. Went into another field of being an analyst, which I really liked and enjoyed. And then the company went bankrupt. We all lost our jobs and kind of stuck back into the operational world. And, you get somewhere else. It's fun and exciting when you start, and it's great. And that job, it required so much travel. And that was exciting for a while until it becomes really daunting. So what do? You move up again and you go somewhere else. And it was just miserable. Like every level higher was miserable. But I'm like, well, I guess it's the title. There's got to be a title there that is going to give me fulfillment. And is it the money that's going to fulfill me? And, I've been rich and I've been poor and everything in between. And when you're chasing dollar signs, being rich is just as horrifying as being poor. And it's the same problems. They just look different, And I'm like, this money doesn't make me feel good. It really is ugly. I don't like how people treat me. I don't like how I treat myself. I was just, everything could be bought, so I wasn't really in it. I was just shuffling dollars. And again, back to just, okay, so I take this piece of paper and I write on it and I give it to somebody else. And I just was like, I'm so miserable and I'm an ugly person. I'm disrespecting myself every day. I'm cursing. I'm drinking too much. I'm, eating crap. I just am an ugly person right now. And this is not who I was brought here to be. And then I go to church on Sunday and pretend that for that hour, I'm who I want to be. Because what I want to be is I want to be closer to God. And this is not getting me there. This is not fulfilling. And I was just like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die if I keep doing this. And I just asked God for help. I'm like, I know it's not my time. I know that I have more to offer. I know that there is something there for me. And can you help me? And not at that moment, but not shortly after, I just heard a voice and it was very loud and distinct. And he said, just leave and I'll take care of the rest. And I want you to just start writing. And I'm like, that sounds pretty easy. Okay. And that was back in 2017, yeah. And I did die. I did die that day. I died. I let that old person that I didn't like stay there and buried it. And then it grew into the person that I do like, which I think will always be an evolution.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly what happens even in the faith of, it talks about in scriptures of letting go of that old man or woman and becoming refined through the Most High in Christ and really becoming the new version to serve God the way you was intended to. And you went through that transformation. It's a beautiful thing. And like you said, it doesn't never end. It's a constant refining after you become that new person, because now you got to stay like that, not revert. But then as you become the new person, you grow stronger as that new person with the gifts and the abilities that you have. So yeah, exactly that. It's interesting too, because you answered exactly the questions that I asked. And one of the things that I remember about corporate America is the competition. And always everybody competing and trying to level up, get this type of ranking, this type of status, winning this type of an award, wanting to have all the accolades and be recognized for what is it that you're doing within the company. And then the company it's like you're only as good as your last sale in marketing, as they say. And that's how it is in corporate America. Well, you're only as good as you were this last quarter. Well, what are you going to do for the next quarter and the next quarter? And it just never stops. And it's this constant rat race for achievements that leave you empty in the long run. It's not really fulfilling, at least from my opinion and from what I've experienced. And also too, what you mentioned about being rich and poor, and being poor and being rich are not too different, because the only slight difference is, and it's pretty much the same experience, just in different ways, that when you're poor, you're working really hard to get money to become rich. And then when you're rich, you're working really hard to maintain that and trying to make more money. And that's when the greed sets in, because when is enough is enough. And usually what winds up happening when you do become wealthy, there isn't enough. It's always like more, more, more. And then you have to try to maintain it. And then the problems, they say more money, more problems. That's very true, because the problems do come. The hate gets thicker. But also when you're poor, you have that problem of being poor and then overworking yourself to try to get out of poverty to only get to that point. And then you're just like, damn, I got here. I worked all this hard to get here. Now I got to do all this other stuff to try to maintain it and get all these new stresses and worries in my life. So I completely agree with you on all of that. And I'm glad that you left corporate America, because I think many of us are starting to do that, especially with the pandemic hit. A lot of people that was working in that corporate environment in the offices, cubicles and all these things, conference rooms, once they started working from home, they're like, hey, I really like this. And what's interesting, this is a statistical fact, is that productivity actually increased when people went home to work, where there was always this illusion or lie that was being told that if people work from home, they're not going to get a lot of work done. But what they found out when the pandemic came is that people actually got more work done working from home. Why? Because they were more comfortable. They were more at peace. Like, I look at it like I wish I would have had an at-home work job when I was in my early 20s, because I'd never forget the lady. There was this lady, I can't remember her name. And I remember she wore glasses, and she just had this wicked spirit to her. And she would be that lady that when you walk into the office, she's looking at her watch to see if you're coming in on time. And she's not even your boss. She's just a nosy employee that wants to keep track of everybody because she got nothing else better to do. And I just used that one example, but I could give you 100 of dealing with the corporate America and having to deal with the people and the competition and all of this tattletaling. And I mean, it just was so much stress that when I left it behind, I was in cloud nine, because I knew that it was more fulfilling to do something independently opposed to having that corporate structure. It's not a healthy environment. It just isn't. I don't think it's a healthy environment for anybody. And anybody that likes corporate America, they're usually a narcissist, because narcissists thrive in a corporate structure because it caters to their lack of empathy. It caters to them being the person that they are to strive and to thrive, because they'll step on their mother's back to make that money. So they have no compassion for anybody but themselves. And not even for themselves. But I just wanted to mention that. Now, let's talk about identifying your dreams and goals. What are some of the things that you can let the audience know in regards to how you've learned how to identify dreams and goals?
Yeah. And, thinking of what you just said, I mean, it totally matches. And people, that enjoy that corporate environment, there's a lot of things there. So there's people that need that sense of, I have to go somewhere every day, and, stick to that schedule. And then there are other people that, are like, look at me, I'm the big manager and walking around with my cup of coffee all day.
That validation.
Yeah. But what makes a corporation that can be successful and can be a place where people want to work is exactly following dreams and making them attainable. And if a company is going to pay attention to their employees and give them value instead of punching a clock and sitting there with the checkboard of, oh, well, you came in at 8:35, not 8:30. Like, well, really? Like, when you put all those terms and conditions to somebody's job, people get let go, right? Because, okay, my train was late, or I have kids and I got to drop them off at the bus, and then I got to get in, sit in traffic. Everybody has a reason. And jobs at this point don't always have to be on site, and they don't always have to follow a schedule. It's like, well, the due date is this. So who cares what time of day you're working? Do what you need to do and get it done. So one thing that I learned and that I saw in my time in management was recognizing those traditions and those places where people were getting themselves fired. And I'm like, this is sad. Why is this person being fired? And let's just use the person that shows up late, a few minutes late, not like 2-3 hours, just a little late. And, someone's like, oh, they've been late 10 times this month, like write them up. And that's part of the rules, right? So the rules are made for good reasons, but then you're hurting the bad people. And when I looked at people that were on that list of you're going to get fired, and it's stupid why you're going to get fired. And so are you late because you hate the job? Are you late for a reason? Like, what is this reason why you're late? And learning deeper into these people. And there was one woman in particular, and it broke my heart because I'm like, she is an amazing employee, amazing. Her knowledge is unbelievable. She was late because I found out she was a single mom, and, her husband left her with a lot of problems, and her mother is in the hospital, and she's trying to navigate her world. But she, very proud person, doesn't tell anybody her problems. And I'm like, I'm going to fire this woman. And this is one of the best employees I have because she's late. There's a problem with that. So sitting with her and learning who she is and what she needs and what her dreams are, I'm like, you're in the wrong job. You're in the wrong job. Why are you not in sales instead of being a man on the street? You need to be in sales. And moving her to this new sales position, she can make her own time. She didn't have to be there early. She didn't have that struggle. And she was making money she needed to get, because she couldn't make it check to check. And that was one of her dreams, but she was too afraid to say it because it was like, well, you follow the pattern. Like, you start at this job and you just either stay there or you become a supervisor or a manager. And that's just what it is. You don't shift over. I'm like, oh, no. You should be in sales. You know the products better than anybody. All these salespeople are taking you on their sales calls and you can't do your job. You're overworking yourself. It was just a bad cycle. And once I realized to spend time with people and learn who they are and what their dreams are, and most corporations have items in place that can really be helpful. And most people really just want to be financially secure. They want to spend time with their family, and they want a place where they could be fulfilled. So we hire the wrong people. We don't give them all the tools that they need to be successful at their job. We're not paying attention to who people are. And once you start to give people value, you realize that productivity is better. People show up on time. People, want to do that extra mile because they see that this job is a place where they can be appreciated and loved. And there's all these tools to help them get what they want. And if it's, I want to go back to school, most corporations have programs that give them assistance to go back to school and will work with you with getting your degree and staying at the job, for other things. But we lack empathy for employees. So if you have a dream on your heart, you were not given this dream because somebody wanted you to work at a crappy job that you're going to be late at every day and get fired. You have a dream on your heart because it's supposed to be yours. And we should be focusing on what it is to get you there, because the more you're focused on getting in your dream, you don't care what those stepping stones are to get there, as long as you're moving. So if you're at a job that you don't like, but they're helping you get there, you're going to appreciate that job, and it's going to change for everybody. And once people see that you're happy and that you're getting your dreams done, it's contagious. So you're not only having more productivity in your department or in what you're doing, clients are going to love it. Like, wow, you guys are wonderful. Like, everybody loves to be here. And you're creating happy and wonderful environments just by focusing on something that God gave you, which is your dream on your heart. And, I've been crushed a million times, and I had to go through a million dream crushing to realize that if I just focus on what God gave me, things start to change. And, I had to get to a place where I was terrified of dying, living in that space to get that answer. But I'm grateful for that moment, because I was dream crushing myself, because I was told that that was supposed to be my dream, and I wanted no part of it. So now I just work on helping people, especially corporations and individuals that are like, I don't feel like I understand my soul purpose, and I want help to get there. And once you do the work of really getting yourself in order, figure out what your finances really are and what your health is, and really focus on what your spirituality is. You start to identify these lists of things that are really important to you. Your relationships improve. Guarantee most people that hate their job and are miserable and are on that list of you're going to get fired next are definitely either just got divorced or fighting with their spouse about being divorced, or in a horrible breakup, or, and then your kids suffer, you suffer, everybody around you suffers. But once you make that change of that value in yourself and really listen to that dream, you watch those relationships improve. You watch how it turns around, because it is contagious and it is a beautiful thing. So I just want to help everybody in the world be happy and fulfill their soul purpose. And it's so attainable. It really is. It was given to you for a reason, and dreams do happen.
So let's talk about your spirituality, because that's obviously a big thing here on the Network of Awareness. I mean, that's the foundation piece, which is the Most High God through Christ. And when did you really find, strength in your faith? And this is a two-part question. And what does Christ mean to you in your life? And how do you implement your knowledge, wisdom, and understanding in the word of the Most High in Christ into your life?
I hope that I answer all of it. I really believe that I never lost faith, even though there's moments where I would say, oh, I don't have faith, or I wasn't being devout in my religion. I do know I do have a very strong connection to God, to angels and saints. And, when people pass away, I always get messages, and, that's a whole world. And it really took me into my 40s to get some answers of things I didn't understand when I was born, because I do remember being born. And I do remember, I know that I was in another life, and I know it was another person, because that person was talking in my head. And, it was like a lady with a martini and a cigarette. Like, what are we doing here? What was this? I mean, but that was what I saw. And I'm like, I can't do this. And I'm like, customer service, like whatever. And they're like, you don't worry. We're protecting you. We love you. And you signed up for this. Just remember that. And doing a lot of deep prayer and meditation, I learned that I was a horrible person in another life. And when I had passed away, I was like, I need to turn this around. I want to turn this around. I want to show people that God is real and that he's trustworthy. And, I'm saying this to God. And, I had been guided so long, and I didn't understand it. Like, now I see so many things that I'm like, oh my God, there was this black image over me. And then I know it was Archangel Michael, but I'm thinking I did something wrong, because it was always in these crazy times in my life where I was going down a bad path, and I wasn't making smart choices, and I needed to change things around. And the deeper you learn about who you are and your soul purpose, and you get connected to God, and he really does speak to you. And if you ask for something, you really do get it. You just may not see it the way you had it in your head. And when you talk to God every day, you're in a relationship with God. He's the person you talk to in your head, and you don't want to change that. And sometimes we don't get things that we want when we want it, but there's always something better behind it. And that's so hard in the moment to see. But I definitely believe, like I was told, I just was getting so many crazy things happen to me when I was little. And I, was saying, there's all I could know is what you can relate to. So I would be like, Grimace is talking to me in the closet, and it was angels talking to me. And everyone's like, oh, you're just a little kid. Oh, you're, what do you know? That's cute. It was a lot of really misunderstanding because I was so deep in my spirituality, but not everybody around me understood that until I was older. And I was telling them when I was born, like, you were standing here, you were wearing this, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And they're like, oh, it's because you saw pictures. And I'm like, well, show me where these pictures are, because I've never seen them. And I'm like 4 years old, mind you, telling them these stories. And, when I got older, I, could get into more depth of some situations and things where proving and showing that, we're being loved and guided, and, God was there and angels were there. And so I knew that I was loved and protected. I never lost faith. I think I just lost at a time period what was going on in my life, because I was in these dark places in my job and not fulfilling my soul purpose and feeling so empty all the time. I just needed to understand where I should be focused, especially in my spirituality. And I had to walk away a little bit to really see what God was trying to tell me. And, I did eventually make this decision of like, if God wants me to promote him and live in his word and get as close to him as I can, I'm going to deep dive into it. So, I went back to church and I signed up for every single thing I could sign up for. And I really just was like, I thought that was the answer. And some of it is, and some of it wasn't. But I met such beautiful people, and, there was just a huge community there that I was never a part of. So I didn't feel like I belonged, but I'm like, there's these amazing people that I'm learning from, and it's so beautiful. And it is connections. And, I became a Eucharistic minister, and on Sundays, we would go after Mass to visit people at their home or nursing homes. And those connections get you closer to God. A lot of these people are going to pass away very soon, and sitting with people that you've seen in the pews your whole life, but never had a relationship with. And you have this bonding relationship with them in their last moments of their life. I mean, it's so beautiful. And I'm grateful for that. Like, that helped me get closer to God and really have relationships with clergy and learn more about their faith and other, people in prayer groups. And I'm in a lot of moms groups, and one day they're going to find out that I'm not actually a mom, but that doesn't stop me from still coming. But, listening to moms and their struggles of being a mom and really being able to understand their connection to God and also to Mary, of, really needing to rely on her to watch over their children, and that those anxieties and fears and feeling their pain with them. And, that's pretty powerful to be in groups like that really are just so passionate about their families and prayers just specifically for their children. And, that connection gets you closer to God, to learn how strong a family really is. And, there's just so much beauty. I feel like I'm missing a part of one of your questions, your 2-part question.
Well, no, I mean, the other part was just like, how do you implement, or like, how is Christ present in your life every day on your journey?
Yeah. So part of what I do, I'm part of a fraternity of the church, which is called the Emmanuel Community. And I'm telling you that because there's a lot of things that we do that I think answer that question. And I really didn't realize it until I became part of the group. And we do a lot of evangelization. And I realized part of who I was not evangelizing, but at the same time, it really was. You just live your life every day in Christ of, being kind, doing all those positive little things, because someone had made a point to me actually not that long ago. It's always what you're doing when no one's watching, because God is always watching.
Right.
So I have a neighbor, she's 94. I've known her my whole life, and she found Jesus through just watching me through all these years. And she's like, you have faith in that guy. She doesn't want to say it, but, and I'm like, I think you do too. And she's slowly like admitting, like, you really need God in your life. And it's like, well, I didn't know that this woman's been watching me my whole life. And then she's watching me live my life in Christ and be relying on him, and taking care of people is part of it, and being polite and saying hello to everybody and just praying for people makes the biggest difference in the world of, I will pray for you. So many people are like, come to me. I put out prayers every day. People just come to me that I either know from college and, any walk of life, or an old job, or just met, and will be like, can you pray for me? Because I could see that you have a strong connection to God. I'm like, well, a prayer is a prayer. Doesn't matter who it comes from or where. I mean, you could pray for yourself too. But yeah, I'm proud that you feel that you could see God through me. And that's part of my goal, is you could see how I'm navigating my everyday through the storms, through figuring out life, and praying just through prayer and just really relying on God. And you feel trustworthy to tell me your problem, to pray for you. I mean, I feel like that's a huge honor, and, prayers do come true. And, you want to look at, I made this mistake, he's never going to forgive me. He forgives you. He totally forgives you. We're all, one of my favorite priests is like, we're all sinners, we're all make these really big mistakes. And that's part of what it is to realize, hey, I didn't live my life today in God. I made a poor choice today. Forgive me, and if you say that act of contrition every day, you are absolving, you're asking God to absolve you of your sins, even the sins you don't even know that you committed. But there's just so much love out there, and, evangelizing is an amazing thing. And it really just starts with you just living your life in prayer, and just live a wholesome, healthy, positive life. Am I perfect? No, I make a million mistakes in it all day, but I forgive myself and not beat myself up about it, and just ask God again to give me the graces to help and keep going through it. So, yeah,
another way too is repenting and correcting your errors and your sins, and making sure that you don't repeat them. That's one of the best ways to be absolved, because some people, they just think by praying to God and saying, hey, forgive me of my sins, that it's just going to go away. But they actually have to put the work in. It's not that God just takes it away out of your life. The Most High has got to see that you are truly looking to better your life, to serve. And, repentance is key for that, because a lot of people don't like to look at themselves in the mirror these days. Mm-hmm. They don't like what they see, but if they don't like what they see, they can change it. But most people don't even like to look into the mirror to see what they need to see. And they always want to point the finger and tell other people what they're doing wrong instead of looking at themselves. Let me ask you another question about overcoming fear. What would you say to how have you learned so that you can educate the listeners on how to fight through fears and how to overcome them? What's some of the things that you were able to do to overcome some of your fears?
Yeah. So there's a lot that you can do. And there's a lot that I have done. Meditation and prayer is definitely number one. But, we're all in a cycle. So there is going to come part of that cycle that has the anxiety and the fear. And sometimes you see it coming. And, talking about corporate America, every Monday morning, I have a panic attack because it was I have to get the train, or I had a job where I had to be in New Hampshire every morning at 10 a.m. So taking that drive, am I going to get stuck in traffic? So every Monday morning, it's like, it's an internal alarm clock of I know that it's coming. And then I'll know it's 7:30 in the morning when it gets here. So identifying your cycles and knowing when that fear is going to show up, because it's not smart, right? So it doesn't really have much more than like a guy with a bad mask, right? So it's like a sad Halloween costume. And once you can see that, there's a lot of those fears and anxieties. that are reoccurring, right? So you acknowledge it and you have the choice to feed it and invite it in, or you have the choice to say, you are just a stupid bully with a bad mask on and you need to leave. And the more you can identify it, the more of those things will go away. One thing that I did that was very powerful and very helpful for me, and I walk through my clients, some of my clients that want to do this, to do a meditation session of identifying what your fear looks like. And for me, it was just this little adorable tiny animal that was like clawed into my heart. And I, just had a conversation with it of, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you here? And it doesn't know anything other than me. And it's just afraid as I am of something, of what's next. So I'm scared. I don't know what the future is. And the fear is like, all I know is you. And all I know how to do is to scare you. That's it. That's all I know. And to be able to take that little animal, give it love, and then hand it over to God. And I'm like, Jesus, please take this, you're my animal. And I, watch him take it and put it into a field with, other animals that look just like him. And you know how many times I went back to be like, God, how is he doing? Is he okay? He's like, you gave him to me. Like, you have to let him go. And you got to go through some of that repetition because it's been a part of you for so long. So to say goodbye is emotional and it's hard. But once you can identify it and see it and watch yourself giving it to God, you could feel that. And that is a beautiful way to really help identify and let go of that fear. And it's very powerful. And, just praying to it and give everything love, just keep trusting that something good is coming and you're always loved and you're always protected. And once you keep that in your brain, you definitely start to see that. There's storms that we're always going through, right? And I just went through one myself, and I'm like, when you shed some skin, or when you're in a new cycle, you've leveled up. A lot of people can identify with saying leveling up. It's your old you, that little fear animal, like, I don't want to leave. And it's like, well, you got to go. And, sometimes there's that internal battle, which I just had, of the new you that's leveled up and is like, I want the good, neat things. I don't want to do these bad things anymore. I don't want to have these thoughts anymore. I don't want to go in this direction anymore. We're going the good way. We're sticking with God and we're going that way. And having to go through those emotions of those fears, fighting you, and the new you that is closer to God. It's like, we're moving forward and that's not coming with us. And that's a storm that's really hard. But when you sit and stay in the trust and just keep giving it to God, just keep handing that fear animal over to God as many times as you need to, wave to him from the fence. You got to go. I got to move forward. I got to keep going forward. And eventually you will see that light at the end of the tunnel, and it's beautiful. And you're like, oh, I made it through that storm. I know that God's protecting me and watching me and will take me through it. So those are just some easy, relatable ways to deal with fear. A lot of people, that anxiety, fear, it's all day, so there's always mechanisms for how to get through that. Some people, tapping works, sometimes breathing exercises works. Sometimes just fiddling with a ring on your finger works. Everybody's different. So I don't want to say, do it this way. I don't like to be that guy that's like, there's one way and it's my way and that's it. Everybody's different and everybody can relate and handle it a different way. So those are just some avenues. There's definitely plenty more, but I like to be very specific to a person of what their issue is and how to handle it.
And of course, this is stuff that you share in your book. So let's talk about the signs that you talk about. And I want you to give one story that you could share with the listeners about how you have this connection to the spirit realm when people pass away, and there's signs and symbols that are shown to you to give you guidance and meaning and understanding. So is there one story that you could share where maybe one of your loved ones passed away and something happened to show you something from that spirit realm that you talk about in your books?
Yeah, my books are all fiction novels, so they're not like definitely tied to specific people, but I do get so many signs and symbols. So I sort of talked through my first two books are related, and I kind of guide through how how it feels and connected and what I see. They're not necessarily the same things. My godfather, I'm very close and connected with him. He died when I was in fourth grade. And he made me a bunch of promises. And I had another uncle that wasn't strong in his faith. And he would, through the years, would grab me at a something and just say, I know you know this isn't me, but your godfather sent me a message. And he's like, this sounds weird to me, but you would understand. So I was getting messages through my other uncle. And there's been a lot of times where I would get a penny or something on the radio. And one day I got 3 at the same time where I could feel it, like I could feel it somebody. And I'm like, well, I'll know by the date, because I couldn't remember. I don't know what year my uncle was born in, but I knew the year he died. I knew he died in 1984. And I was like, I think it's him. And I went to look, and the penny was 1984. And then I got in my car, and there's a song that's 1984. I'm like, there's a song called 1984. I didn't even know that. And then I go home and I turn on Netflix, and it's like, don't you want to watch this old movie, 1984? I'm like, okay, I got it. You're with me. But he did, one of the promises he gave me was, he told me this before he died. I was the only one that knew he was going to die. He just had the flu. And he told me, he's like, I know you know. And I'm like, I know you're going to die. And I couldn't even look at him. He promised me a car. He promised me he was going to get me a car. And I got his car when my dad saved his car. And when I turned 16, they gave it to me. And I'm like, this car sucks. I don't want your car. and I know this is one of those, well, God, you always turn it around and it doesn't make sense. I got into a car accident. I didn't get into a car accident in that car. I got into a car accident in my mom's car. And my dad traded, the car was totaled to, like, we got to get a new car. My dad's like, all right, we all, this car sucks. This car's old. Traded in the other 2 cars and we all got a new car. Okay. So those are some of my strong signs from my godfather.
Okay. All praises for that. Yeah. So now that, you've been on this journey since 2017, what is some of the biggest takeaways that have been beneficial to you since you've made the transition from being in corporate America to now pursuing your purpose through the grace of God?
It's been a journey. It hasn't been easy. It hasn't been sunshine and rainbows. I will say that. I wrote 9 books. I wrote 3 books in 9 months. Sorry, not 9 books in 3 months. And I didn't know what to do next. Like, I didn't get it. I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, do they just become bestsellers? And like, that's the answer. I was still living in that brain of, all right, I did what you asked me, what's next? And every time I went down a different avenue, it was like a huge door. And I'm like, what is this all about? What am I doing wrong? I wrote the books. Where am I supposed to be? And again, I went back into a strong meditation prayer and asked God for some help. And he came into the room and he wouldn't look at me. And I was like, what's going on? What am I doing wrong? And he's like, I told you to do one thing. I told you to write. You're not writing. Just keep writing and I will figure it all out. I will take care of you. And then the second I go back to start writing, that's when doors start to open. So I needed to be reminded a million times that, God gave me a direct message and I'm not listening. I wasn't listening. I wasn't doing it. And once I started to do it, it was like that phone call I wanted comes back, and those doors that were locking and closing, one door opens. And, now by doing that and going back to writing and focusing on that life and that career of just speaking of God, it's leveled up. So I started a blog and people are starting to recognize it. I've been going on podcasts and people are really starting to recognize that. And then, you get introduced to the person that you never thought you were going to meet. And it's like, hey, let's make your books into movies. It's like, okay. So I'm just going to keep writing and just keep, keeping that boat moving and thank God every step of the way and just keep asking him for guidance.
Absolutely. So let's pull up your website here. And by the way, for the listeners, so it says here right now to your website is you can book a consultation call, and that her website is debbykrusz.com, and that's going to be in the description box, by the way, for the listeners. And it says that I will also offer a free download of Soul Meets Body. So is that something that's available after somebody books a consultation call, or just for anybody?
Just for anybody. I'll give you a link. I think I need to update the link. I'm not sure if you have the updated one or not. So
okay.
Yeah.
So let's pull up your website real quick, just so we can show the people that are actually viewing this, and then we'll describe it for those that are listening on audio. Let's see here. All right. So as we can see here, we got Debby Krusz. It looks like she's looking up at the Most High. And it's Dream Pollination. Now, how did the name Dream Pollination come into fruition?
Well, the origin of my name is the bee seeker. And so, with trying to play on words and, what I want to call my dream program, because it is a dream manager program, but, I want to add to it and put some of my flair. So I felt like the dream pollination, because bees only want the best for you. They just want to make everything around you beautiful and smell good and feel good so that you can have a fabulous day and be successful. And that's what I want for everybody as well. So I'm kind of revamping a little bit what the dream pollination program looks like. So it can be a little bit, not as long as it is right now, but just so people can follow the seasons of, not everybody needs to go through the entire program. Some people just have already done a lot of the work, and I just want to focus on having people be able to get through the struggling parts and not have to do the full 12-month program.
Okay, so here's Soul Meets Body, 6 Degrees of You by Debby Kruszewski. And this is the book that you offer for free?
Yes, it's a download from the publisher's website. I know a lot of people think it's straight from Amazon, and I wish that it could be, but unfortunately, I can only offer a download from the publisher's website.
Okay, so you'll send me that, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that when this episode airs and publishes, they'll have access to it. So 3 people on a boat. This is another one of your books?
This is a screenplay that I'm writing right now. It's called Leaving Taylor Behind. And I was originally writing it as a novel. And then until you meet somebody that's like, why don't you make it a screenplay so we can make it straight into a movie? I'm like, okay, I like that. So I had already written in some of my outline a piece of the book, and I don't want to give anything away, but it is a lot of signs in there. But there's definitely some strong guidance and signs in that scene that will come out when the movie comes out. So
yeah, it says faith.
I just think it was just a good piece to share, because a few people were really asking me about it, and I'm like, yeah, I could send you this part. It doesn't give anything away, really. So
there's some interesting things in this screenplay. It has to deal with faith, dreams, self-love, trust, God, believing yourself, human trafficking, danger, bestsellers, books into movies.
Yeah, it's going to be about a family that had faith, and the father fell into some financial trouble and hooked in with the wrong people and didn't realize he was putting his daughter in harm's way. And so see how that all plays out. But I think it's going to be a drama thriller, but it is based on faith, so.
Sounds very interesting. Interesting.
I'm excited about it. Yeah.
What about this Holding Me Back? That's it looks like it has suicide prevention in it as well. So can you talk a little bit about Holding Me Back?
Yeah. So that's a blog post actually about a friend of mine. He's another person that sends me lots of signs. A guy that I used to work with hated each other, like couldn't stand each other. And we had to be separated a million times because like literally one of us was coming at each other, going to clobber each other. And he was not a good person. You know, he would leave work, go straight to the strip club, you know, drinking drugs, the whole 9 yards. And then he decided that he needed God, and he found God. He was a born again Muslim. But once he made that decision, he became a lovely person, and we became friends. We became good friends. And I went through a really horrifying breakup, and I thought that I was going to take my life that day. I really did. And I also lost my job like the same time. It was the company that went bankrupt. It was a lot at the same time. And it was the middle of the night, and he called me. He's like, I know that you're going through a hard time, but you're going to do it. You're going to get through this. This is just a storm. And, you know, he really helped me that night. So I believe that he's one of my angels. And then we lost touch, and because we went in different directions. And the last time I saw him, you know, I knew that was the last time I was going to see him. And so it's just him passing away, and, you know, the messages that he sent me since then. So
wow. And let's see what else here. We got left or right. Is this another blog post, or what does this have to do?
This is my blog.
Okay. You got to keep going. Yeah. All right. And that's about faith, dreams, self-love, trust, God, believing yourself. Mm-hmm. All that I have, inspiration. It's about fear, love, faith, Jesus, Catholic, breathwork, meditation, prayer, Christian music, Chapel of Sacred Heart. And you got Talk to Me, conversation that changed me in 2021, 18 notebooks, drafting season, Lauren didn't go to Paris, 1 degree, 85,000 reasons, when the bee stings. That sounds interesting. Inner beauty. And then we have so what, or so what? New Craig. Itsy Bitsy Spider. Wow. Yeah. Interesting titles here. Very interesting. Yeah. And, you know, for those that are listening, definitely, you know, check out, Debby Krusz, website for either if you want coaching, consulting, if you're a small to mid-sized business, if you're a restaurant owner, or if you're just somebody looking to overcome your fears, build your faith up. You now know that Debby's website is available. And let's stop sharing here. So one of the other things I wanted to ask is, you know, you're doing all this great work, and you have this unwavering faith. We, like everybody, you're not perfect. We all have our ups and downs, but our faith always keeps us up even when we're down. And there's a thing that I have a series. I did a show called Even When It's Bad, It's Still All Good. And it really is, because a lot of times when things are bad, it's just a refining process. It's just to strengthen us. And like that saying goes, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I truly believe that, because a lot of my life has been been exactly that. So my question to you is, what are some of these, can you just talk briefly about how one person can, or how people can improve their relationships by truly following their heart? If you could go into that.
Yeah, that's what Soul Meets Body is really all about. It's really about turning relationships around, and really identifying forgiveness, and really knowing that once you forgive somebody, you could find beauty in that relationship. There was a good point there was something good at some point in that relationship. And it's not just, a man and woman relationship, but, it's friendships, it's, parents, it's cousins, it's coworkers, it's all the people around you. And, you see there's two journeys going on. One is a mother, and, she has to forgive her father. And once she forgives him, things start to turn around, and she convinces the mom to forgive the father. And, they start to see some beauty in each other. And then it helps the daughter get to her dreams. And then you see how her dreams brought her to her son, and that her son, following that same faith and trust of, what is on her heart, and him having to go through forgiveness, and then having to walk away from a relationship, but how he forgave her and she came back. And it's just, I feel like forgiveness is such a huge piece. And I actually, I've done this, and I, definitely promote other people to do it, is to make a list of 100 people, 50 that you want them to forgive you, and 50 of who you're willing to forgive. And you think like that list sounds crazy, but you start adding to that list and you see it. And every day you go through that list and you just say a prayer to ask for forgiveness or to give forgiveness, or both. Some situations it's both. And not everybody has that chance or opportunity to do it face to face, but just doing it mentally, saying, I forgive you, or please forgive me for this. Once you start going through that list, you see how powerful that is and how you change relationships all around you. And it's once again, it's contagious. So then people start to see how you change, because do you ever notice somebody, you're like, wow, you look really good today, and there's nothing really different. Like, hey, I wear this every day, but they could see it. They could feel that weight lifting off of you. And then that forgiveness is just an echo, and it keeps moving through. And that person you forgive, sending them forgiveness, they feel something. They feel something within them. And they may not know how to identify it, and they may not need to, but they will feel that calmness within them as well. And it's very powerful, and it's beautiful as well.
Okay. Very well said. Very well said. Let's give her a round of applause for that. So, Debbie, I'm going to wrap things up for the show. What I would like for you to do now is, and you can take as long as you want, but any last words and comments for this episode for the listeners that are going to be tuning into this show. What are the final comments and last words that you want to leave this audience with for this episode on the Most High Makes No Mistake series?
That you are divinely made on purpose. You are unique. You are not here to compare to other people. And, ask God for help every day, because the closer you get to God, the closer your dreams become more aware. And, you will live a fulfilled life if you follow that direction.
Okay. Is that it? That was pretty quick.
I think so.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So I want to thank you again for coming on to the Network of Awareness. Hopefully, we can have you come back when you finish some of these new projects, if you want to promote them on the show. You have, how many books do you have currently that are published now?
I have 3 books that are published, and they're all on Amazon.
Okay. And what are the name of those books?
Soul Meets Body, Precious and Fragile Things, and Live to Tell.
And Live to Tell. Okay. And then, of course, like I said, go to Debbie's website to find out more information. So giving all praises for Sister Debbie to come on the show and share her gifts and her abilities and doing her charitable work in her dream pollination project. And, the title of the show is From Corporatocracy to God's Purpose Policy. And Debbie's definitely, following God's purpose for her and following that as her policy now through the Most High in Christ. So with that being said, I want to say we're giving all praises to the Most High in Christ for the opportunity to bring this truth out and to truly live a life that's worth living and worth having and a faith that's unwavering. So, like I always say, brothers and sisters, when you live in the present, there is always an opportunity for a new beginning. And don't look for the light at the end of the tunnel, because the light is within you. So light up the tunnel and find your way through the darkness. This is ORRA the Informationalist, signing off with my guest, Debby Kruszewski, from the Dream Pollination Project and fellow New Yorker. And I hope that everybody enjoys the rest of their day. After this broadcast, download the show, support the Network of Awareness, and peace, love, and light, brothers and sisters, and giving all praises to the Most High in Christ. And shalom.